Look, if WWE were to offer me a spot on their roster, not only would I immediately question their sanity more than I already do, and cack my trousers, but I don't think I would give a second thought as to what they wanted to call me. Hell, they could brand me Danny the Diddler Dilkins for all I care, because I would be a WWE superstar and there's nothing you can do about it, baby. Of course, once the shock wore off and reality set in, I would probably want them to go in another direction as far as my name goes, heartened by the fact I wouldn't be the first WWE star to have a dodgy prospective ring name dumped in favor of something better. I'm Danny the Diddler Dilkins from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are 10 cancelled WWE ring names. Join us.
But first, I would like to have a serious talk about protection. As one of the world's greatest professional wrestlers, I wouldn't dare step into the ring without my knee pads, my elbow pads, and that funny tape they all tend to wear now. No idea what it does. However, when I'm out of the squared circle and need to stay protected online, I rely on NordVPN. Cheers to Nord for sponsoring this video. We at Cultaholic truly believe that Nord is the best service of its kind. Let me tell you how I use it. So, I'm a cheapskate, obviously, and using Nord means that I can set my location to pretty much anywhere in the world and sign up for video-on-demand services that I wouldn't normally have access to, or get them much cheaper than where I live. That means cheaper movies, cheaper TV shows, cheaper premium live events. Catch my drift? On top of that, it protects against password attacks, phishing, ransomware, malware. I use it to book cheaper flights, hotels. It's the fastest VPN in the world, and it can even be used on up to 10 devices. It's seriously an investment worth making, costs the equivalent of a cup of coffee a month, and there's even a 30-day money-back guarantee. So, if Nord isn't for you, you can get your money back, no bother at all. So, to get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, head to nordvpn.com/cultaholic. Our link gives you a huge discount, plus an extra 4 free months off the 2-year plan. Don't worry, you already know the link is in the description below. Thank you very much for your time, and enjoy the video.
Number 10, Hiroito. In late 2003, Tajiri pretty much begged WWE not to call the stable featuring himself, Akio, and Sakota the Yakuza for fear it would anger the actual Japanese mafia and cause all kinds of problems. WWE evidently learned nothing from this, because in April of 2004, they began airing vignettes for a new character called Hiroito. Clearly a ploy to generate some good old-fashioned racist heel heat, Hiroito was named after the man who ruled Japan during World War II. Supposedly, Hiroito would be the grandson of the former emperor set out to destroy America, to be played by Kenzo Suzuki. Immediately after the first vignette aired, it was obvious that the gimmick was rubbing some people the wrong way. According to then WWE writer Dan Madigan, a day after the one and only Hiroito promo played on Raw, Vince McMahon let everyone in creative know that Hiroito never happened, and they were to move on to something else after the Japanese royal family reportedly let their displeasure be known. Suzuki ended up debuting on SmackDown using his real name, and WWE never treated Japanese talent in a disrespectful or culturally insensitive way ever again. Number 9, Riot and Rage. On the indies, you can pretty much give yourself whatever name you want, which is why childhood pro wrestling fan Adam Copeland gave himself the wonderful handle of Sexton Hardcastle. Because I mean, why wouldn't you? A name suitable for the small halls, perhaps, but that wasn't going to fly in WWE, and when Copeland joined the promotion proper in 1998, they struggled to come up with something appropriate to him and his character, which I should add was originally going to be an angry deaf mute before they settled on simple tortured soul. Among the list of names that were considered included Riot and Rage, which sounds like a tag team fresh out of the WCW power plant. Copeland, quite rightly, didn't fancy either of those, and while on a road trip with Don the Jackal Callis, began throwing around band names like The Offspring before getting to U2 and mulling over the prospect of Edge, inspired by group guitarist David the Edge Evans. To be honest, Edge isn't that great a name, is it? Yet somehow it worked, and is infinitely better than Cope. Number 8. Shrug Shadow. Scott Hall was famously pitched a G.I. Joe gimmick upon signing with WWE in the early 90s, owing to his experience growing up as an army brat. Hall probably saved his career by instead doing his best Tony Montana impression for Vince McMahon, who hadn't seen Al Pacino's portrayal in Scarface and thought that it was the best thing ever. But this new character would need a name, and Scott, for whatever reason, thought Shrug Shadow would be it. Hall pushed for the alternative moniker, but it was rejected by the powers that be, which is a good thing really, because it's very hard to see Shrug Shadow having nearly as much success as Razor Ramon did. After Road Warrior Hawk pitched Deadbolt, Hall focused in on the name Razor, which McMahon was hesitant to go with due to professional boxer Donovan Razor Ruddock. But the bad guy persisted, and after talking with Tito Santana at the urinals, nothing dodgy going on I'm sure, just good old-fashioned pissing, he got the surname Ramon and was off to the races with a name that rolled right off the tongue. Number 7. Elizabeth Reed. Charlotte Flair, or Chuck Flair for short, is the perfect name for the daughter of the Nature Boy. She gets to keep her father's surname and carry on the family legacy that way, while the name Charlotte is a nod to Slick Rick's adopted hometown of Charlotte, North Carolina, aka Flair Country. Real name Ashley Elizabeth Fleer, she had initially pitched something different when beginning her sports entertainment journey. Ashley's idea was to keep the Elizabeth part, not because she loved her middle name or anything, but in tribute to Miss Elizabeth, whom she greatly admired. She also wasn't too keen to go with the Flair surname, perhaps having seen the way it weighed on her older brother David, and suggested Reed after her younger brother's first name instead. But Chuck was out of luck, since WWE was set on Charlotte Flair being the second-generation prospect's name. Luckily for her, she was able to live up to the name, and then some, forging her own legacy as one of the most decorated women's champions, as well as one of the best beefers in WWE history. Number 6. Quinn Cullen. It's almost unfathomable that Becky Lynch would be called anything other than Becky Lynch, but to get there was a process. WWE wanted to use a name associated with her real name, which is Rebecca Quinn. She wrestled as Rebecca Knox on the Indies, hence the Becky part. Yet the man herself thought differently and suggested using her shoot surname as a kayfabe first one, coming up with Quinn Cullen. This wasn't just some random Irish-sounding name either, but based on Cuchulainn, a warrior hero and demigod from Celtic mythology. Quinn Cullen had a ring to it perhaps, but WWE weren't convinced and came back with some ideas of their own. According to Big Time Bex, these included Madeline something, which she outright rejected, and Robin Daly, which she liked, despite the fact that to me it sounds like some sort of 90s roving reporter and not a WrestleMania headliner. In the end, she realised that she could keep part of her own name in there and went with Becky Lynch. Number 5. Mason the Mutilator. Jim Ross lobbied hard for WWE to sign Mick Foley during the mid-90s, with his persistence finally paying off as McMahon relented and brought him in. He seemingly didn't have any interest in Cactus Jack, however, despite Foley's success in WCW, ECW, and Japan wrestling as that persona. Nope, one of the conditions for Foley's signing was that he would have to cover his face up with a mask and wrestle with a new gimmick of WWE's creation. That creation? Mason the Mutilator. Foley, unsurprisingly, was not impressed with this proposal, later calling the name one of the worst things he had ever heard. When Vince McMahon asked him what he thought of the name, Mrs. Foley's baby boy lied and said that he loved it, but what if? The hardcore legend then suggested Mankind the Mutilator instead, explaining the double meaning of the name. WWE went with it, though early concept art does have the name Headcase, and luckily for Foley, the Mutilator part was dropped and he debuted as simply Mankind. Number 4. Buddy Peacock. Bryan Danielson spent a decade making a name for himself by putting on classics for independent promotions like Ring of Honor, as well as overseas in Japan and beyond. But that name meant diddly to WWE, who wanted something they could trademark and market for the American Dragon after he signed with the company in 2009. The indie veteran was lucky not to be saddled with something as rotten as Nexus contemporaries Michael McGillicuddy and Skip Sheffield, but he almost shot himself in the foot when WWE asked him to submit 10 potential names for them to mull over. Among the ones Danielson included were Buddy Peacock and Lloyd Boner. I can only assume he assumed that he wouldn't be there long, and in the grand scheme of his career, his WWE name didn't really really matter because those are both hilariously awful, even if the name Buddy had sentimental significance as it was his father Donald's nickname. It was only after talking with mentor William Regal that the bright idea of swapping his names around for Daniel Bryan came about, though part of me is sad we never got to see Lloyd Boner win the big stiff one at WrestleMania. Bonermania deserved to run wild. Number 3, Reginald Dupont Helmsley. Paul Levesque had one of the all-time corniest names when he first started working in the business, Terror Rising. I mean, just how did Terror Rising become one of the most powerful people in the industry? It was the name he used at the start of his WCW career too, before being rechristened Jean-Paul Levesque when he was repackaged as a French-Canadian aristocrat. Levesque was planned to do something similar when he left WCW for WWE, though he dropped the whole French-Canadian part of it since McMahon believed that it would make it difficult for him to turn babyface down the line. WWE asked Levesque to come up with some potential new ring names before J.J. Dillon let him know that they had chosen Dupont Helmsley. Reginald Dupont Helmsley. The cerebral assassin knew it sucked a fat one, and Dillon could sense his disappointment, promising to revisit Levesque's list of ideas. After said consultation, Dillon came back and informed Levesque that they had greenlit Hunter Hearst Helmsley, which wasn't great, but at least gave the future Hall of Famer something to work with. Shawn Michaels began calling him Triple H immediately, and that's the name that ended up sticking, even if it does sound like some sort of arse cream. Not that I'd know about that kind of thing, of course. Number 2, Cain The Undertaker. Mark Calaway had to endure a bunch of crappy names and gimmicks before landing on the one that would give him fame and fortune. Prior to joining WWE, he was Texas Red, Mean Mark Callis, Punisher Dice Morgan, and the Master of Pain, among others, as he paid his dues in various promotions. After initially fearing that he was going to be the Gobbledygooker, which also made its televised debut at the 1990 Survivor Series, Calaway was somewhat relieved to be entrusted with the Undertaker character. What some fans may not know or may have forgotten is that The Undertaker was initially called Cain The Undertaker and actually wrestled a couple of matches under that name at some TV tapings prior to his pay-per-view bow. The Cain part was added at the behest of Bruce Pritchard, who liked the biblical overtones and felt that it was a strong name for a strong character. Unfortunately for Brucey P, who briefly managed the dead man as Brother Love, WWE quickly dropped the Cain part and just started referring to him as The Undertaker. Dropped it, yes, but didn't discard it entirely because, number 1, Inferno. Like his kayfabe brother, Glenn Jacobs had to suffer through a series of lame names and gimmicks before he found the money one. Bruiser Mastino, Doomsday, Unabomb, Isaac Yankem DDS, Fake Diesel, none of these were a ticket to main event stardom for the 7-footer, who must have been contemplating a different career before he was presented with a chance to be The Undertaker's evil sibling. And it was a good day for Big Brucey P too, as he got to recycle the Cain name, which now had added significance related to the story of Cain and Abel. The name Cain absolutely fit the character to a T, but that wasn't the original working idea, because at first WWE wanted to call this new creation Inferno. Given the character's fiery origin story, it made sense on paper, but the Big Red Machine himself wasn't sold, believing that it sounded too cartoonish. Pritchard agreed, and together they floated Cain, which was duly approved.